What's up, Amelia from Revenge Rewired here. Today's story, absolutely wild. Hit subscribe so you never miss one. Dr. Rebecca Chen and I met at a medical technology conference in Boston 3 years ago. I was presenting my early research on non-invasive glucose monitoring for diabetic patients, a wearable sensor that could track blood sugar levels through interstitial fluid analysis without painful finger pricks. Rebecca approached me afterward, effusive with praise. "This could change millions of lives," she said, her eyes bright with what I thought was genuine passion. "I have connections with hospitals and investors. You have the technical brilliance. We should partner." I was a biomedical engineer with patents in sensor technology, but no business experience. Rebecca was a physician with an MBA and a network that seemed to open every door. The partnership made sense. We formed MetaSense Technologies, LLC, split ownership 50-50, and I got to work turning my prototype into something market-ready. What I didn't know was that Rebecca saw our partnership very differently than I did. For 2 years, I worked 16-hour days in our small lab space. I designed 17 different sensor configurations, tested 43 materials for biocompatibility, and solved the calibration problems that had stumped researchers for decades. Rebecca handled business development, which mostly meant taking meetings while I did the actual engineering. I documented everything meticulously. Every design decision went into detailed emails to Rebecca, copying our lab technician, Marcus Jeffrey. Prototype iteration was photographed with my phone, automatically embedding date and location metadata. Every failed test and successful breakthrough was recorded in my lab notebooks with dated entries. Just keeping you in the loop, I'd write to Rebecca, attaching CAD drawings and test results. Iteration 12 shows promising results with the polymer matrix. She'd respond with brief encouragements. "Great work, keep going." Then, 6 months ago, something shifted. Rebecca started asking odd questions. "Do you keep all your design files backed up?" she asked during one meeting. "Of course. Everything's in the cloud and on my local drives. And the lab notebooks. Those are company property, right? They're my personal engineering records. But yes, they document company work." "Why?" "Just thinking about IP protection," she said smoothly. 3 months ago, Rebecca suggested I take a vacation. "You've been working yourself to exhaustion," she said with apparent concern. "Take 2 weeks. Clear your head. The device is nearly ready. You deserve a break." I was exhausted. I agreed. While I was hiking in Colorado, disconnected from email, Rebecca filed a patent application with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Application number US 2024-01234556. Inventor, Dr. Rebecca Chen, sole inventor. The patent described my glucose monitoring device in exact technical detail, the sensor array configuration I'd spent 2 years perfecting, the calibration algorithm I'd developed, the specific polymer matrix I'd formulated, my work, my innovation, my 2 years of problem solving. Her name alone. I found out when I returned to the lab. Marcus, our lab tech, pulled me aside immediately. "Dr. Chen filed a patent," he said quietly. "I saw the paperwork on her desk. Your name isn't on it." My stomach dropped. "That's not possible. I designed every component." "I know. I watched you do it." I confronted Rebecca that afternoon. She was in her office, on the phone with someone about licensing deals. "We need to talk about the patent," I said when she hung up. Her expression didn't change. "Oh, that. Yes, I filed it. The device is ready for commercialization." "Rebecca, I'm not listed as an inventor. I designed the entire system." She leaned back in her chair, completely composed. "Actually, if you look at the fundamental concept, I was the one who identified the market need and the approach. You did excellent technical work implementing my vision. But the invention itself, the core idea, came from our discussions." "That's not true. I was researching this before we even met." "Can you prove that?" She smiled slightly. "Look, I have 3 hospitals ready to license this technology. Massachusetts General, Johns Hopkins, and Cedars-Sinai. This is worth millions. I'm prepared to offer you a generous consulting fee for your technical contributions, say $50,000. That's fair compensation for your assistance." "Assistance?" My voice was shaking. "I invented this device. Every circuit, every sensor, every line of code in the calibration software." Rebecca stood up, gathering her papers. "I'm moving forward with commercialization. I've been advised that as the named inventor on the patent and the business development lead, I have full rights to license the technology." You're welcome to consult an attorney, but I think you'll find that's expensive and time-consuming. I'm offering you $50,000, which is quite generous. I suggest you take it. She texted me that evening. You were good emotional support during development. Thanks for that. The $50,000 offer stands until Friday. I stared at that message for a long time. Then, I smiled. I didn't argue further with Rebecca. I didn't send angry emails or make threats. Instead, I called Marcus. I need you to write down everything you witnessed in the lab, I told him. Dates, what I was working on, conversations you overheard. Everything. Already started, Marcus said. This is wrong, and I'm not staying quiet. Then I called Patricia Weston, an intellectual property attorney who specialized in patent disputes and inventorship challenges. Her firm had handled several high-profile cases involving stolen innovations. Tell me everything, Patricia said during our first meeting. And I mean everything. Timeline, documentation, witnesses, communications. Of it, I spent 6 hours in her office that first day. We built a timeline starting from 2 years before I even met Rebecca. I was researching non-invasive glucose monitoring during my graduate work, I explained. I have my thesis proposal from 3 years ago outlining the basic approach. Then I have 27 months of documented development after forming the company with Rebecca. Patricia leaned forward. Documentation is key. What do you have? Everything. I pulled out my laptop. 340 emails to Rebecca describing every design iteration. My lab notebooks with dated entries. Prototype photographs with EXIF metadata showing dates and locations. Purchase orders for specialized equipment in my name. Code repositories with my commits. Manufacturer invoices for custom components I ordered. Patricia's eyes widened slightly. You documented everything. I'm an engineer. Documentation is how I think. This is extraordinary. Most cases like this come down to Hesed, she said. You have a paper trail that most patent attorneys dream of. We spent the next week organizing everything. Patricia's paralegal created a massive spreadsheet, cross-referencing dates, documents, and events. Every email I sent Rebecca describing my design work. Every photograph I took of prototypes. Every purchase I made for lab equipment. The emails alone were devastating to Rebecca's story. Email number 1. Sent 14 days after we formed the company, Rebecca cited to begin work on the glucose sensor. Attached are my initial design schematics for the sensor array configuration. I'm thinking we can use a 3-layer approach with microneedles penetrating just into the interstitial fluid space. Email number 47. 6 months later, prototype 4 is showing promising results. The calibration algorithm I developed is compensating for temperature variations effectively. See attached test data. Email number 128, 12 months in, breakthrough on the polymer matrix. The formulation I developed using medical-grade silicone with embedded conductive nanoparticles is maintaining sensor accuracy for 14 days. This is the missing piece. Email number 340, 2 weeks before I went on vacation. Rebecca Fennell prototype is performing beautifully. All systems are ready. The device works exactly as I designed it. Rebecca's responses were uniformly brief. Great. Excellent work. Keep me posted. Never once did she contribute technical input. Never once did she suggest a design modification or solve an engineering problem. She was a spectator to my innovation. Patricia also subpoenaed Rebecca's emails and communications. Discovery revealed something stunning. Rebecca had been planning to cut me out for months. In an email to her personal attorney 6 months before filing the patent, Rebecca wrote, "How do I protect the IP my engineer is developing? I want to ensure I control commercialization. She's doing great technical work, but I'm the one with the business vision and medical expertise." Her attorney had responded with advice about ensuring proper IP assignment and inventor documentation advice Rebecca clearly ignored when she decided simply to steal my invention. We also had Marcus's testimony. As our lab technician, he'd been present for almost every development milestone. Dr. Martinez designed everything, Marcus stated in his sworn declaration. Every sensor, configuration, every test protocol, every design modification came from her. Dr. Chen would visit the lab maybe once a week, ask how things were going, then leave. I never saw her contribute to the technical development. Dr. Martinez would work late nights solving problems while Dr. Chen was at networking dinners. The prototype photographs were particularly powerful evidence. I'd taken hundreds of photos documenting the device's evolution, and every single image file contained EXIF metadata. Look at this, Patricia showed me on her computer. This photo of Prototype 7 was taken on March 15, 2023, at 11:47 p.m., at the lab's GPS coordinates. The metadata shows it was taken with your phone. We can trace the entire development timeline through your photographs alone. Patricia also brought in a technical expert, Dr. James Whitmore, a biomedical engineering professor, who'd published extensively on sensor technology. I've reviewed all the documentation, Dr. Whitmore stated in his expert report. The invention clearly originated with Dr. Martinez. The technical sophistication required to develop this device is substantial. The emails and lab notebooks show a consistent progression of problem-solving and innovation spanning 2 years, all authored by Dr. Martinez. Dr. Chen's communications show no technical contribution whatsoever. Meanwhile, Rebecca was moving forward with her licensing deals. She gave interviews to MedTech magazine about her revolutionary invention. She presented at conferences as the device's creator. 3 hospitals signed preliminary licensing agreements. She sent me one more text, last chance on the $50,000. After this, you get nothing. I didn't respond. Patricia filed 2 actions simultaneously. First, a petition with the USPTO to correct inventorship on Rebecca's patent application. Second, a lawsuit in federal court for patent fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and conversion of intellectual property. The USPTO petition included our entire evidence package, all 340 emails, Marcus's testimony, the prototype photos with metadata, my lab notebooks, purchase orders, my graduate thesis, and Dr. Whitmore's expert opinion. The evidence is overwhelming that Dr. Jessica Martinez is the sole inventor of the glucose monitoring device described in application US 2024-01234556. Patricia wrote in the petition. Dr. Rebecca Chen contributed no inventive concept and has fraudulently claimed sole inventorship. This is a clear case of invention theft. Rebecca's attorney tried to fight back. They claimed Rebecca had contributed the fundamental concept and that I was merely a technician implementing her vision. Patricia destroyed that argument in our response. Dr. Chen's own emails contradict this narrative. She provided 0 technical input, solved no engineering problems, and demonstrated no understanding of the invention's underlying technology. The evidence shows she was a passive observer while Dr. Martinez invented, designed, and perfected every aspect of the device. The deposition was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in Patricia's conference room. Rebecca arrived with her attorney, a nervous-looking man named Gerald Hurst, who clearly knew his client's case was weak. I sat across the table from Rebecca. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Patricia didn't waste time. Dr. Chen, let's start with the basics. Can you explain the technical principle behind how the glucose sensor measures blood sugar levels in interstitial fluid? Rebecca hesitated. It uses sensors to detect glucose molecules. Can you be more specific? What type of sensors? Electrochemical sensors, I believe. Can you describe how they work? Another pause. They detect the presence of glucose through chemical reactions. Patricia pulled out one of my early emails. In this email dated April 3, 2023, Dr. Martinez describes developing a 3-electrode amperometric sensor system with a working electrode, reference electrode, and counter electrode. Did you design this configuration? I provided input on what the device needed to accomplish. That's not what I asked. Did you design this specific electrode configuration? Not the specific technical details, but did you develop the calibration algorithm that compensates for temperature variations, skin conductivity, and metabolic rate fluctuations? No, but did you formulate the polymer matrix that allows the sensors to remain biocompatible and accurate for 14 days? Rebecca's face was flushing. I provided the medical expertise about what patients needed. Patricia placed a stack of my emails on the table. These 340 emails from Dr. Martinez to you describe every aspect of the device's development. Can you point to a single email where you contributed a technical solution to an engineering problem? Silence. Can you point to a single component of this device that you personally designed? I, Rebecca's attorney, tried to object, but Patricia cut him off. This isn't a courtroom, Mr. Hurst. Your client needs to answer. She's claimed sole inventorship of this device. She should be able to explain what she invented. Rebecca couldn't. For 2 hours, Patricia walked through the device's technical details, and Rebecca couldn't explain any of it. She didn't understand the sensor chemistry, the signal processing algorithms, the power management system, or the data transmission protocols, because she hadn't invented any of it. Patricia then presented Marcus's testimony, the prototype photographs with their damning metadata, and Dr. Whitmore's expert analysis. Dr. Chen, Patricia said finally, when exactly did you decide to file a patent listing yourself as the sole inventor? Excluding Dr. Martinez, despite her documented creation of this entire device, Rebecca looked at her attorney. He looked defeated. I believed I had contributed sufficiently to be considered an inventor. Based on what your own emails show, you contributed no technical input whatsoever. I identified the market opportunity. Identifying a market opportunity doesn't make you an inventor. Dr. Martinez was researching this technology before she even met you. Her graduate thesis from 3 years ago describes the fundamental approach. You knew this. You've seen her documentation. Yet you deliberately filed a patent claiming sole inventorship. Why? Rebecca's face went pale. I want to take a break. Answered the question, Dr. Chen. Her voice was barely audible. The investors wanted a single founder. They thought it would be simpler. So you committed patent fraud because it was simpler. The deposition ended shortly after. Rebecca looked shaken. Her attorney looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. 2 weeks later, Patricia received a call from the USPTO examiner assigned to Rebecca's patent application. I've reviewed the inventorship correction petition and supporting documentation, the examiner said. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of fraudulent inventorship I've encountered. Dr. Chen will be removed as inventor, and Dr. Martinez will be listed as the sole inventor. We're also flagging Dr. Chen's conduct for potential disciplinary action. Rebecca's attorney called Patricia the next day requesting settlement discussions. The lawsuit settled 3 weeks later. The terms were exactly what we demanded. First, Rebecca was removed from the patent application entirely. The USPTO amended the application to list me, Dr. Jessica Martinez, as the sole inventor. The patent would issue in my name alone. Second, Rebecca was required to transfer her entire ownership stake in Medisense Technologies LLC to me. The company and the revolutionary medical device it owned was now solely mine. Third, Rebecca was required to pay $2.3 million in damages. Patricia's experts had calculated this based on the preliminary licensing deals Rebecca had negotiated using my stolen invention. The 3 hospitals that had signed letters of intent were now negotiating with me directly. Fourth, Rebecca was required to issue public corrections. She sent emails to every investor, hospital administrator, and journalist she'd spoken with, stating, I wish to correct the record regarding the glucose monitoring device. Dr. Jessica Martinez is the sole inventor. I did not contribute to the invention's technical development. I apologize for any misrepresentation. Her reputation in the medical technology community was destroyed overnight. The conference that had invited her to speak as an innovator rescinded the invitation. The MedTech magazine article was retracted. Her LinkedIn profile, which had prominently featured inventor in her headline, went dark. Fifth, Rebecca was permanently prohibited from claiming any connection to my invention or any future work I developed. The settlement agreement was signed on a Friday afternoon. Patricia handed me the executed documents. You did everything right, Patricia told me. You documented your work meticulously. You had witnesses. You kept contemporaneous records. This is how you protect your innovations. Marcus, our lab technician who'd bravely testified on my behalf, became my first employee when I restructured the company. I gave him a significant equity stake and a raise. You stood up for what was right, I told him. That matters. The 3 hospitals that had initially negotiated with Rebecca now became my licensing partners. Massachusetts General Hospital's Technology Transfer Office contacted me directly. We're relieved to be working with the actual inventor, the director told me. Dr. Chen's deception was concerning. Your documentation and expertise give us complete confidence. Within 6 months, I'd signed licensing deals worth $8.4 million. My glucose monitoring device began clinical trials at 5 hospitals. Early results showed it could reduce painful finger prick testing by 90% for diabetic patients while maintaining medical-grade accuracy. The patent issued 18 months later, United States Patent No. 11,234,567, inventor, Dr. Jessica Martinez, title, Non-Invasive Glucose Monitoring System Using Interstitial Fluid Analysis, my name, My invention, my years of work, finally recognized. I never spoke to Rebecca again after the settlement. I heard through professional networks that she'd left the medical technology field entirely. Her attempted theft had made her radioactive in the industry. I built Medisense Technologies into exactly what I'd envisioned, a company focused on innovative medical devices that improve patients' lives. My glucose monitor became the foundation for an entire platform of non-invasive diagnostic tools. 2 years after the patent issued, I was invited to present at the same Boston conference where I'd first met Rebecca. This time, I was the keynote speaker. Innovation requires not just technical skill, but integrity. I told the audience of engineers and entrepreneurs, document your work, protect your ideas, and choose your partners carefully. After my talk, a young engineer approached me nervously. "I'm working with a business partner who's starting to take credit for my designs," she said quietly. "I don't know what to do." I thought about Rebecca's text message. "You were good emotional support during development." I thought about my 340 emails, my prototype photos, Marcus's testimony, the 2 years of documented proof that turned attempted theft into justice. "Document everything," I told her. "Every design decision, every email, every contribution. Contemporaneous records are your protection. And if something doesn't feel right, trust that instinct." She thanked me and walked away, already pulling out her phone to photograph her latest prototype. I smiled. Some lessons are expensive. Some partnerships end in betrayal. But the truth, properly documented, is unbeatable. My invention had been stolen. My work had been dismissed. My partnership had been betrayed. But I'd documented everything. And documentation, it turns out, is the most powerful tool an inventor can have. The patent on my office wall bears my name alone. Every word of the technical description represents problems I solved, designs I perfected, innovations I created, my work, my invention, my justice. Rebecca learned an expensive lesson about intellectual property law. You can't steal what est meticulously documented as someone else's. The USPTO examiner's call to her really was enlightening, for me at least.